So these virus vaccine mandates, however you want to call it, in LA County is real strict. And so they are not playing out here. LA County, a federal COVID-19 vaccine mandate goes into effect January the 4th. And so here's how it affects. This right here is talking about people in Iowa. But LA County is no joke. I mean, out here, we have some really strict mandates. For example, I'll be honest with you, like my work, even though if you get vaccinated, you can have full vaccination. I don't care if you have like 2 or 3 shots. They want you to test every week. And so you have to show proof that you are not infected. And so if they even see any signs that it looks as though that you might be sick, they start questioning, you know, how you're feeling and everything. I know a couple of places that I have seen they had the temperature monitors, like where they could take your temperature or read it. They'll have something they could read your forehead. If you just seem like you might be sick, then they, start to ask you questions and take you through a series of steps and find out if you might be sick. So workers at businesses with more than 100 employees must be vaccinated for COVID-19 or undergo weekly testing. This is starting January 4th. So this is talking about if they're not vaccinated, then they should be tested. But I know some places that it doesn't matter even if you are vaccinated. In LA County, here to be specific, you still have to test every week. So this is by Iron Richardson and Des Moines Register. And so this is published today. And so the new details immediately prompted an outcry from Republican leaders in Iowa who oppose COVID-19 vaccine mandates. And so Governor Kim Reynolds vowed to sue over the requirement. So once in effect, the new rule could cover more than 923,000 Iowa employees who work for 2,200 businesses. And so it's not just Iowa. It is. I think this is in most major, states, or most states, cities, most major cities, metropolitan cities. They have some kind of rules into effect. And so in Iowa, employers must now navigate the new regulations as well as a brand new state law that the Iowa legislature has passed last week. This is in anticipation of the federal rule. And so the law attempted to soften some of the effects of the rule by requiring employers to accept religious and medical exemptions for COVID-19 vaccine, while also extending unemployment benefits to those who were fired for not complying with those mandates. And so here's what you need to know about the new rule. This is regarding Iowa. So the new law and what happens next. So who does the new rule apply to according to Iowa? So the new federal rule will apply to workers at businesses and with 100 or more employees. So employers could be slapped with penalties up to about $13,600 per violation. So that's pretty expensive to get in trouble just because you don't follow through. So this is if you don't comply with those rules. So the rule doesn't apply to people who work from home because you're not around a whole lot of people that are, out in the public, out and about, supposedly, for long periods of time. But so it says the rule doesn't apply to those people that are working at home, but it would require testing for unvaccinated hybrid workers. And so if they're reporting to an office during a given week, so Iowa, in the rule, it also appears to apply to a state and a local government employers with 100 or more employees, including teachers and school staff. And so I know I'm comparing it sort of like with this state in LA County, like all of the teachers, they have to, have proof. I think they have to be vaccinated actually. And now I think this week, children are, I believe, 5 and above, if I'm not mistaken. I believe I'm going to say 5 and above, but most of the school age children, let's put it like that, school age children are allowed to have the vaccination shots. And I guess some parents have been getting their kids shots, I guess because they want to keep the kids safe because of the kids going back to full classroom participation, those parents that are allowing the kids to do so. So that's because Iowa, it says they're among the 21st states or 21 states that have the option of writing their own workplace rules for public and private sector workers. But those rules can't be weaker than what the federal government is requiring, and it must be adopted in 30 days. And so a spokesperson for Reynolds did not comment on, this was on Thursday, on whether the state plans to follow the requirements for the employees. And so workers are considered fully vaccinated if they have taken 2 doses in either the Moderna or the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, or 1 dose of the Johnson & Johnson by January the 4th. So if you've gotten those, then you would be considered fully vaccinated. But employers must give employees paid time off to get the vaccination shots and recover from those side effects if they have any. And so what if they don't want to get vaccinated? So 68% of Iowans 18 and older are fully vaccinated from COVID-19, according to the Centers for Disease Control. But there are significant resistance. It has been, and it's not just in Iowa, it's here in LA County. There's some people like that too, and in some other states. I've seen it all over, where some people are still refusing to get vaccinated for, it could be for religious purposes, it could be just they don't want to get vaccinated, it may not even be religious related, or there's still the fear of what is this all about, or maybe people think that what's the use of getting vaccinated if there are other variants out there and they could get bypass all of the vaccination shots, and are they can bypass, there was one I was reading about, they said probably has enough strength to bypass all of the immunity that people are getting from the vaccines, so it can bypass these vaccines. And I heard that in this article. And so some people might be looking at that. And the other thing is there's breakthrough cases. Some people are fully vaccinated and they still wind up getting sick for whatever reason. So some people may think, maybe looking at those issues and thinking, why get the shots if they're not going to actually protect? And maybe they are for a while if you get enough people that have it. But the question is how long is the immunity going to last? Is it something we have to get like once every year? And then they're talking about, I'm adding more into this than the article calls for, but it's also saying that there's some antiviral COVID-19 pills that are coming out. And so they're looking at approving them at some point, and maybe people will have to take those, instead, or maybe they'll be more willing to take those rather than the shot, So it says the rule allows workers to undergo weekly testing as alternatives, although they may have to bear the cost of testing themselves. Now, I know out here in LA County there are places that you can test for free, but it's just the idea of having to test, how it sometimes feels, how do you say, it's almost like they're waiting for you to catch it. So they're like, oh, well, job's over. You're infected, and then they have to shut everything down. And I had seen that at some places that I was at where they had to shut everything down because they didn't want a lot of people getting sick. So, and they went through the 14-day lockdown before they got the green light to reopen, and some might have closed even longer. So that's pretty annoying, to say the least. But the rule allows workers to undergo that weekly testing. So the rule would also require unvaccinated employers or employees, that is, to wear face masks. Employees, if you're an employee and you didn't get the shots, you could wear a face mask. Uh, I guess on the job beginning December the 5th. But you'd still have to get, I believe you still got to get the test to show proof 72 hours or less to show that you're not infected. So businesses can be tougher than the rule requires. And boy, LA County, I've seen some places where you can't even put your foot in the door. They want to see some kind of proof. So that's probably not sitting well with everybody. I'm going to add this in the LA County Sheriff Department. They're fearing that there's going to be a mass exodus of officers because of the mandates. And so that's not only the only area. There's some city workers that they have like a deadline, and if they don't get some proof that they're fully vaccinated or at least safe to go back to work, then it could jeopardize their work altogether. Some people are looking at the door, termination, like quitting, resigning, however you want to say it. And so it looks pretty grim for some. So there are some places out here that are really, really tough. So it says if you got a religious exemption for COVID-19, then what? And what about the medical exemption as well? So some people have that. So simply put, yes and yes, they say. Now this is Iowa, okay, talking here. So let's not get it confused. In LA County, so they might be a little bit different about things, or they could be a somewhat similar, but the details of how the federal exemption process will interact with a new Iowa law that involves religious exemptions remain somewhat murky. So when they say that, that to me sounds like eventually they, I will say this might not sit well with some people. It might make people feel uncomfortable too, because some people will use religious exemption as an excuse not to get the shot, and they're not really religious. They're not part of any religion. It's just an excuse to not get the shot. And so they could be infected. And so that is probably nerve-wracking and stressful and worrisome, because let's say if somebody's sick and they're using that as an excuse, now they've exposed themselves around people just to get the exemption, and then they've gone to work and they've exposed other people to something that they didn't ask for, and all because they wanted to be selfish. So federal guidance says employers must make the reasonable accommodations for the employees who refuse the vaccination due to a disability, religious belief, and pregnancy as well. So those accommodations could include testing alternatively under a new rule. So that's the other way that some places will go around, just to make sure the person isn't sick, is to test them every week. And so sometimes it can be a pain. And then too, the fear that, you're thinking about, okay, who was I around? Because I was looking at the news, they were saying that, a lot of these places want you to show proof that you're safe and that you're not infected. But pharmacies and grocery stores, you don't have to show proof. So what if you go shopping, which a lot of people have to go, you have to buy your food, you have to get your medicine. So what if you go somewhere and a person is infected and they're in the pharmacy or they're in the grocery store shopping, you're standing in line and you're right next to them. And, even though it says 6 feet, not everybody's going to follow that. And so you're going to pass people as you go in and out. And somebody could be sick. You're handling the baskets, the carts. A lot of those shopping grocery stores, they don't clean the baskets very well. And you can see where it looks like the baskets are really icky. And so you don't know who handled the basket before you or after. And it's like, oh man, it's like just a haven for that. If anything, if you're gonna catch something, that might be the place to get it. The grocery store, and you know, what that Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid. You're gonna stand in line. You're gonna walk down the aisles. You're gonna be waiting for a while. You're gonna be in there. Even if it's ventilated properly, you're gonna be around next to somebody, passing by them. So I just think it's kind of crazy, but maybe people are looking at that too. They're saying you could get it anyway. You could get it in. It's a crapshoot. So it appears to go further than the law by giving employers less of an option to turn down an employee claim for exemption if there's not a reasonable accommodation available. And so if they suspect it's not legitimate medical reason or religious belief, so they could even suspect. And so that kind of goes a little, that's getting a little deeper. And so the law says employers shall waive the vaccine requirement for an employee who submits a statement that receiving the vaccine would be injurious to their health or well-being, or it conflicts with the tenets, practices, and religion, and the employee adheres to or belongs to whatever their religion is. So if it goes against it, and so the statement would not need to be attested by a physician or a faith leader. So basically, the person could lie. I'm just being real with you. They could lie and say they're part of religion and get an exemption. They could lie and say, "Oh, I have a health issue." So if they're saying that this is Iowa, okay, let's be specific here. This is Iowa. So I don't know about LA County. They're a lot stricter. Here, I don't think you can get away with too much. They've kind of like closed up a lot of loopholes. There were loopholes out here, but a lot of that is now, they're looking at people. And I tell you, if you can lie if you want to, but you got to test weekly. Most of these places, they want you to have a test. So I was looking at Universal Studios, and my family, like sometimes we would go like every year to celebrate or whatever, or just go to have fun, family outing. And so they've got mandates. This is LA County, this is Hollywood Universal Studios, not Florida. So Florida's probably a lot different. I don't know. But the numbers here in LA County are going up. And so here, what they're saying is that you have to have a test within 72 hours showing proof that you are COVID free if you didn't get the shots. Or you have to show proof that you got vaccinated or something other. But I believe you have to wear a mask. I think it's optional. I'm just guessing. I don't know that part for sure. The reason why I say that is because some people will wear masks, but then you have others that won't. And they're walking around people and everything. And I believe Universal Studios, it draws a lot of tourist people, a lot of different people from everywhere. And so some people will wear masks and others probably won't. They might stress that you do as a way of protection. They probably won't hold themselves liable if you do get infected, but they will be looking at it if somebody is, because if people do start getting sick and they say they were there at such and such a date, then that's the fear, these crazy, I don't know if they'll shut things down though, that it doesn't seem like things won't shut down, really, they won't shut down. It's just, what'll happen is that it'll be a lot of people sick, and those people, they will trace them, and it might affect your job, it might affect other things. So the new law also specifies that employees must request a waiver and submit a statement, but it does not specify a specific form employees must use. So Iowans seek an exemption, they can check with their employer about how to make the request. You see all these steps that you got to go to, and so this is just Iowa I'm talking about. I can imagine that LA is probably, it's a lot more complicated because I've gone through some of this already, and it can be nerve-wracking, and it's stressful because you don't know if they're asking you to go back to work, and you've got to go back to work so you can live. take care of your family or whatever, and you feel that pressure, and then you don't know about the people you're around, what their practices are they safe, are they sick, and according to whatever job that you might have, if you're in a position that where you could be exposed, it just adds another stressor. And then you get tested every week. It's like almost like, okay, when's the week that it's going to say I'm positive? That's what it feels like. And so it's scary. So it says, Mercy One, the new law has already affected the hospitals that put their own vaccine mandates in place as well. So Mercy One delayed its November 1st deadline until November 12th. So as hospital leaders work through the new law's implications, Unity Point planned, and I believe these are hospitals, it's called Unity Point, to place employees who hadn't complied by November the 1st on leave while leaders sort out who qualifies for exemption. So it's got everybody in tailspin, these mandates. And I'm just using this Iowa as an example because let's just listening to this is so complicated. And it's mind-boggling. It's like it makes you think. It's like, hey, what is it? How I'm gonna do this? Is it gonna affect my job? Am I gonna have to quit? And this is the kind of stuff that's happening here in LA County too. It's the same stuff, but I think it might be more stricter here than even Iowa. So state leaders said that Thursday they were still examining the rule and did not offer clarification on how Iowa's new state law could affect enforcement of the federal rule when it comes down to who qualifies for an exemption. So there's another issue right there on top of all the other ones. So several Iowa businesses also said that they were still looking through the new rules. So whether Iowa expanded exemptions will allow more employees to circumvent Biden's vaccine requirements remains unclear. So this was said by Denise Hill and an associate professor of Drake University, and so who has written a book on vaccine mandates. Wow, we got a book that fast. But I imagine, because it has been crazy. It's been crazy. It's going to get crazier. I'm just telling you right now. It's going to get crazier. It's already starting, and I believe this is going to be the turning point for a lot of people. Where are they going to live? I'm not lying. Where are they going to work? People are going to be like, oh, they have those mandates. I'm not living there, or I'm moving, or I'm relocating, or I quit that job. It's going to change this right here will change people's lives, according to these laws. Because it gets in the way of quality of life. I'll be, as safe as it sounds, somehow it can get in the way of quality of life as well. And so there is a good reason for this. People want to be safe, but it's become obsessive to the extent to where people don't want to get sick, that they have created all of these strict laws. And it's because this disease it took so many people out. And I guess they don't want that to repeat. But what's the scary part is the numbers are rising again here in LA County, regardless of how strict things are. And then I've been reading about, I think Jesse Jackson was one who, him and his wife got a breakthrough case of COVID. I believe recently he hit his head and they had to transfer him to some hospital. But I don't know that was COVID related. That was something different. But I heard that his wife had gotten it and he got it, Jesse Jackson. And then I've heard of other people getting breakthrough cases where they were fully vaccinated and they still got it. I believe Colin Powell, he died. He actually was fully vaccinated and he died. So those are, I guess, if you want to use arguments for argument's sake, those might be the arguments that people will use to go to about, well, why are we taking this if we could still get sick, and then that also raises fear again, because what it's saying is that maybe some people are immune to a certain level, But after that immunity fades, there's a possibility of a breakthrough, or maybe people just are just vulnerable to getting sick. And then when I read that article, that didn't sit well. That made things worse too. That they said there's these new variants that have already come out, and there's one that might even be able to bypass all these vaccines. And so that's scary. And so I don't think this thing is over with. I'll just be honest. That's my true feelings about this. I believe that I would say I understand both sides. Um, and I understand why people are making these laws, because they're worried that a lot of more people will get sick. But I feel like I'm wondering how long the immunity lasts on these vaccines, and if where there's variants out that can bypass it, will we start all over again to where it started, where there's a hysteria about people dying? And so that's the question out of all of this. And so as it goes on here, it says a professor at Drake University who has written a book already about these mandates is also practices as an attorney and a mediator with the Whitfield and Eddy law firm, which we'll see a lot of lawsuits behind all of these mandates. It's already started, and lawsuits about who's going to be around who, those are also started. I think that this is sort of a novel approach that Iowa has taken, and if it's found to be successful, I definitely can see other states that have similar objectives following suit. So this is what Hill has said. So Senate Minority Leader Zach Walz, Coralville, a Democrat, said that on Thursday there is still confusion on how Iowa's new rule or law will intersect the federal requirements, and it may require legal action as well to sort things out. And so I don't think that there's substantial concern on how those two laws are going to intersect. So the exemption piece in particular. And so I think that's unfortunately a question that will likely have to be answered by courts. And so because I don't know if there's a lot more that the stage, or I said the stage, but the state legislature, it is like a stage. What are the term they use? Political theater? They say political theater. That's what it feels like, honestly. That's probably what I was thinking in my head is, yeah, this is political theater. But it says state legislative branch can do, he said. It's like fighting back and forth, and there's all these questions in your head, and you're like, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? And it's like some people say, oh, don't go on the what ifs, but the what ifs have been happening. People have been getting breakthrough cases. And then you have some people who they don't get tested, they don't get vaccine, and they get so sick that they could die, and some have. Um, they might, because of that, the groups that have refused to get vaccinated, maybe it's caused them to be a lot more vulnerable because of people who've gotten vaccinated. So the virus is like, okay, I can't affect this person right now because they've got something in them to kind of shield them from this virus, and then it skips over those people and then goes straight to the one that is unprotected. And so it's more likelihood of that happening because you have so many people that have opted in of getting some kind of barrier of protection. So in addition to expanding exemptions, Iowa's new law also allows Iowans fired for not complying with the vaccine mandates to qualify for unemployment insurance. And so through the law, it's gained support by Republicans and several Democrats as well. So it faced pushback from businesses who said that the new law could place employers in difficult positions, so as well as from groups that oppose vaccine mandates who didn't believe that the law went far enough to ban the mandate. And so where can they get vaccinated? So Iowa's Department of Health, Public Health, has a search tool. So it assists Iowans to finding vaccine providers in their area. And so that is available, and they have it here, Vaccinate Iowa, vaccinate.iowa.gov/providers, and then it says where can you find the tests. So the COVID-19 tests are widely available from a variety of sources and in a variety of forms. So statewide testing in Iowa programs offers free take-home test kits, and Iowans collect their own saliva and mail it to the state lab at the University of Iowa for analysis. And so we have that here in LA County where you can get free tests, and they'll have the results in sometimes as fast as the next couple of days. So the state health department recently added drop-off sites in large cities around the state, and Iowans can submit their test same-day delivery to the state lab. So Iowa coronavirus system includes several options ranging from local clinics, pharmacies, and Walgreens, CVS, Hy-Vee, and the private firms like GS Labs and West Des Moines, which charges $380 per out of the pocket of those that don't have insurance. So providers offer different types of tests, including PCR tests, rapid antigen tests, and antibody tests. The state last month launched a testing locator. It's a map to help connect Iowans to test in their area. So the map is available to the state's coronavirus through that coronavirus website. And so it says, what are state leaders saying? So Iowa Republican leaders immediately pushed back against the new rule Thursday, saying that they don't believe COVID-19 vaccination mandates. Okay, they don't believe in it. And so Reynolds vowed that he would take action against the mandates. And he's not the only one. There's other people that are not happy about some of these mandates, most of them. And so last week, Reynolds had also joined 9 other states in suing. And so this is what has happened recently. They've sued the Biden administration over the vaccine requirements for the federal workers. And so this is where the big fallout is. And so the new lawsuit will be separate. And so Biden's plan pits against Americans while forcing them to choose between making a living and standing up for their personal beliefs. And this is what's said by Reynolds, who is vaccinated for COVID-19, but has been staunch opponent of mandating the shot. And so Biden's actions will only worsen the existing workforce shortages, which there are all over the place. In the LA County, it is crazy. Like, I recall, like maybe 2-3 years ago, you could not really just go somewhere and get hired because everybody was working. Now there are places begging for people to come to work. There are people, like, I see more and more cars, people just staying home. They do not like these mandates. They're not trying to get tested every week. Some of them don't even want to do that. And they're not going to get the shot. And some got the shot. They just don't like taking tests every week. You got some people who half got the shot. They got one shot. They didn't get the second one. For fear. I've heard of a woman who said she got one shot of something, but didn't go back and get the second one. And so she said she was really sick with the first one. And so there's a lot of stuff. I mean, it is crazy. It is crazy. It's crazy here in LA County, the same way as it is in Iowa. So Republican Party Iowa Chair Jeff Kaufman said in a statement that the party supports Reynolds' lawsuit and that Biden administration has absolutely overstepped the power. And so Democrats responded by praising Biden's leadership on the pandemic. Walz has said Republicans haven't presented a plan to end the pandemic. And so at least Biden administration is doing something. So they like the fact that he's trying to do something rather than nothing at all and not responding to it. So if this is how he has to do it, then this is how he has to do it. That's the way they look at it. That's their take on it. So he told reporters Thursday, what are Republicans doing then? If they have any other ideas that will be better than the mandates. So regarding confusion surrounding Iowa's new law, Iowa Democratic Party Chair Ross Wilburn said that the speed has likely led to uncertainty. around how it'll work. And so the confusion is understandable given the pace that this was put together. So this is said by Wilburn. So this is on USA Today that contributed in this report. And so the reason why I did this article is because it is just reading through it. It's so complicated. All the different things that they have to do for these mandates, and that seems to be the biggest focus right now, especially here in LA County. And our sheriff department, Sheriff Villanueva, he's saying that there might be a mass, it's almost definitely there's going to be a mass exodus of law enforcement. That's going to be crazy. That is going to be the whole start of chaos. I you know, as much as people dislike police officers, we still need officers. Trust me. I mean, we're not in the position to rule ourselves and govern ourselves, safely. I just don't think it, I feel like this is like, I said this when I was on Twitter. I was like, it seems like a dystopian world that we're heading in that direction. I was even kind of foreseeing where, because of climate change and all of these things with this virus and the mandates and the way people have kind of like not really had enthusiasm in going to work because of these mandates and the rules that are set forth, the quality of life is forever changed. It's like now you have them talking about here that is so hot. There's certain places that are going to be impacted because of climate change. There's some fires here, flooding there. There's going to be places where there's sea level rise and people will have to move. I believe that started already, where people are trying to sell homes that are closer to the coastal line and they're trying to move further inward. And like people who are in areas that are prone to fires, they're trying to get out of those areas. And so they're trying to move inward away from where the sea level is rising or possible high floods or areas that are more prone to the impact of climate change. And it's scary. I don't know if you noticed there's models that they have already, scientists have already mapped out of possible photos of what it could look like if nothing is done about or nothing is done to correct, which they say some of this stuff is going to happen anyway, but it could get a lot worse. That if nothing is done to correct the wrongs that have happened with, the fuel fossil emissions and, a lot of other things that are like polluting the earth and oh my God, it just doesn't end. And this is going to scare the pants off of some people, but I was reading this and I don't know if this got enough attention. I didn't hear it in the news, but it was stated in an article, and I might, if I can find it, that the drinking water, for years, they said it has some kind of pollutants in it, a chemical, and it's cancerous. And people have been drinking it and not really knowing about it. And this is everywhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is scary. It's so scary because, it's like you don't even know. It's like you're thinking things are safe. You're thinking, oh, well, they have a filtration system. They're cleaning things and everything is safe. It's got fluoride in where it's good for you and all that. And then the next thing you know, you hear, oh, it's bad for you. It has something in it that's been there for years and it has cancer and all these other things in it. And they hadn't talked about it and they kept it hid. And it's crazy. And it's like, I read that. I was like, no way, no way. I think I did have an article about that, and I will come back with that later. But these mandates have changed the quality of living for sure. It is never like, how they were saying, oh, the new normal. There's nothing normal about any of this. Nothing. That's all I gotta say. There's nothing normal about none of this. This has been scary, and it's been really scary, and it just seems like it's not going to get any better, really, to be honest. A lot of it seems like it escalates and it causes new fights. There was racism, which still is a problem, but I believe these mandates also can cause people to discriminate people. It adds to the pot. If you got fuel in the fire a little bit, now you're putting more coal into it with the mandates. They can use that for, oh, you can't come in here because you don't have your shot record, or you didn't take the test, whatever. And so it has started fights in some areas where people are like, you're discriminating us and blah 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 blah. And then some people look at people and assume that they're infected. It doesn't matter what your tests say. It doesn't matter whether you had the shots or not. They use your race, or they use, oh, they might got it. Yeah, they look like they are infected. And people will use that to discriminate people. It's been crazy. And so, anyway, with that being said, until the next article, but I do have some other articles that are crazy. It just seems like things are getting crazier and crazier, and these mandates have kind of catapulted the crazy. I understand on one hand why we need them, but it has also caused so much disruption in the quality of life. It is not even funny. I mean, and it's this disease. That's the main reason. The disease has caused all of this disruption. So hadn't we not had this disease, I know we could say that if we didn't have this, then we wouldn't be looking at this at all. We wouldn't even have to worry about mandates or anything like this, shots or anything. Nobody be worried about it because there's no disease to have to, no pandemic. But because of this disease, it's just like it has changed the quality of life. And boy, has it changed it.